My name is Lauren M. Keaton. I am 30 years old, and I spent almost every dollar I had saved to buy a house for my sister. A house I was never invited to celebrate. A house she moved into, filled with our relatives, posted all over social media, and captioned like she had earned every brick with her own two hands. Money can't buy respect, she told me later. And for the first time in my life, I believed her. Because clearly almost $300,000 hadn't bought me even an ounce of it. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who let people walk all over her. I worked hard, I saved, I made careful, boring decisions. I wasn't reckless, I wasn't careless with money. I prided myself on being the one who didn't need rescuing, the one who quietly handled her business while everyone else in the family cycled through minor crises. At least that's who I thought I was. Then came the pressure. Slow at first, then relentless. It started right after my younger sister Melissa got married to Nick. We were all sitting in my parents' cramped living room, plastic covers still clinging to the arms of the old couch, the smell of reheated leftovers hanging in the air. My mother cleared her throat and gave my father a look. They both turned to me with the kind of seriousness usually reserved for funerals. "Melissa and Nick need a house," my mom said, crossing her arms like a judge delivering a sentence. "They're in a good position, Lauren. It's time for you to step up for your family." I almost laughed. I thought she was kidding. I looked from her to my dad, waiting for the punchline. "They don't need a house," I said. "They can rent like everyone else. That's what people do when they're starting out." My mother scoffed so hard she actually rolled her eyes. "And waste money on rent with a baby on the way?" My father leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We don't have room for them here, and you know it. Either they move in with you, or you help them out. Be a grown woman about it, Lauren." I shook my head slowly. Not my responsibility. They should have thought about all this before they got married. That was my first mistake. I genuinely believed my refusal mattered. From that day on, it became their mission to wear me down. Every phone call, every visit, every casual drop-in turned into a fresh round of guilt tripping. My mother sent long texts about how family takes care of each other and how she didn't raise me to be selfish. My father would call after work, his voice heavy with disappointment, reminding me that I was in a position to help, while Melissa and Nick were just getting started with so much on their plates. Melissa herself never asked. That was the worst part. She let them do the dirty work for her, sitting in the background like a queen who knew her loyal subjects would handle the negotiations. She would smile at me, talk about baby names, complain about their tiny apartment, but she never said the words. She didn't have to. She acted like it was already decided. For a month, they pestered me. Calls at odd hours. Surprise visits where they'd sit in my apartment, look around at my neatly furnished living room, and start in again. "Look at this place," my mother would say. "You're comfortable. You have everything. How can you sit here and say you can't help your own sister?" When I ignored my phone, they left voicemails filled with pointed sighs and soft threats about regrets you can't take back. My mother even cried once, saying, "I raised you better than this, Lauren. I never thought you'd turn your back on your own blood." I didn't break because I agreed. I broke because I was tired. One evening, after a particularly brutal double shift at work and 3 missed calls in a row, I stared at my buzzing phone and felt something inside me just give. "Fine," I muttered when my father's number flashed yet again. I answered. "You want a house? You get a house." Within 2 months, almost all of my savings, $293,000 when you counted closing costs, repairs, and furniture, were gone. In their place stood a 3-bedroom house in a quiet, safe neighborhood. Not a mansion, not some luxury estate, but solid, a yard, a decent kitchen, space for a nursery, a park down the street. Exactly the kind of place my parents kept saying Melissa deserved. Legally, it was mine. The deed had my name on it. I signed every line. I wired every dollar. On paper, the house belonged to me. In my head, I was giving it away. The last step was to hand them the keys, walk them through each room, soak in their gratitude, and maybe, just maybe, feel like the sacrifice meant something. But before I could do that, I had to leave town for a few days on a work trip. I told my parents I'd give Melissa and Nick the keys when I got back. Apparently, that was too long to wait. While I was gone, my parents decided they knew best. They took the keys from my drawer, drove over to the house, and let Melissa and Nick move in. I found out through a text. "By the way, they're already settling in," my mother wrote, as if she was telling me someone had delivered a package early. We didn't want them waiting around in that cramped apartment. You can come by when you're back. I stared at the message for a long time. I told myself it was fine. I told myself it didn't matter that they'd taken control of the one part I thought I'd have a say in. I told myself what mattered was Melissa and the baby having a safe place to live. When I got back to town, I drove straight to the house. Melissa opened the door in leggings and an oversized t-shirt, hair pulled back in a messy bun, a coffee mug in one hand. The front entryway was cluttered with moving boxes and half-assembled furniture. I could hear Nick somewhere in the back, talking loudly to someone on speakerphone. "Oh," she said when she saw me, blinking like I'd caught her off guard. "Did you text first? We're kind of busy." I stepped inside anyway. "Just wanted to say congratulations," I said, glancing around. "House looks good." She shrugged, already turning back toward the pile of boxes. "We're still getting settled. There's just so much to do. I don't really have time to chat." Nick walked past the doorway, arms full of folded blankets, barely glancing in my direction. No smile, no handshake, no acknowledgement beyond a quick nod like I was a delivery driver who brought a package yesterday. I waited. Nothing. No excitement. No, thank you. No, we're so grateful you did this for us. They didn't offer to show me the rooms. They didn't ask if I liked how they'd arranged the furniture. They acted like I was visiting their house. I left after a few minutes, telling myself not to take it personally. Moving was stressful. They were overwhelmed. Maybe they'd say something later. That was Monday. On Saturday, I was scrolling through Instagram on my couch when a photo stopped me cold. Melissa, standing in the doorway of the house I had paid for, holding a drink, smiling like her life had always looked like this. Behind her, the living room was packed. Friends, extended family, neighbors, even my parents all squeezed together, plates of food in their hands. The caption read, "Now we have our own place, like all normal Americans. Life is easy." I must have read that sentence 10 times. Now we have our own place. As if they'd scraped together every dollar themselves. As if I had been nothing more than a silent investor. As if my name wasn't on every document that made that house possible. I wasn't invited. Money can't buy respect, I thought, staring at the screen, feeling my pulse pound in my ears. But it could buy something else. Options. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, that Instagram caption flashed in my mind like a neon sign I couldn't unplug. Now we have our own place like all normal Americans. Life is easy. They weren't just celebrating without me. They were rewriting the story. My sister was pretending she'd earned the house. Pretending I didn't exist. Pretending she was the adult who built something, and I was just nothing. By morning, the numbness had turned into something sharper. Not rage, not grief, something colder, something steadier. Clarity. I grabbed my keys, got in my car, and drove. The house was only 15 minutes away, but every turn of the wheel felt like crossing years of history. Every childhood slight, every guilt trip, every moment my parents treated Melissa's wants as my obligations. I didn't knock. I didn't text. I just rang the bell once. Melissa opened the door in her pajamas, hair shoved into a messy bun, holding a coffee cup she hadn't even bothered to sip from yet. She blinked like I'd woken her up too early on a Sunday she thought she'd earned. "Oh," she said flatly. "Did you text first? We're kind of—" "Why wasn't I invited?" I cut her off. Her eyes darted sideways. Then she took a long sip of her coffee, stalling, thinking, and leaned her shoulder against the doorframe like she was settling in for a conversation she had no real intention of having. "Lauren, come on," she sighed. "It was just a little get-together. Small. Nothing big. Half the family was here," I said. "People I haven't seen in years. Mom and Dad were here." She shrugged, looking irritated rather than guilty. "We didn't think you'd be comfortable." "It wasn't about you, okay?" she added, as if that made it better. I let out a short, incredulous laugh. "Not about me. I bought this house, Melissa." Before she could respond, Nick walked into the hallway, arms crossed, still half asleep. "Dude," he said, not even looking at me fully, "it's just a housewarming. Don't make this weird." I ignored him completely. "All I wanted," I said slowly, "was a thank you. When I came by earlier this week, you barely acknowledged me. You acted like I was a stranger." Melissa put her mug down on the entry table and folded her arms. "Money can't buy respect, Lauren." I stared at her. "What did you just say?" "You heard me." She lifted her chin. "You decided to buy this house for us. That was your choice, but that doesn't mean we have to bow down and worship you for it. Honestly?" She shrugged. "It's kind of pathetic. If I were you, I wouldn't have done it. I'd have some self-respect." Something snapped inside me, not loudly, not dramatically, just cleanly. So let me get this straight, I said softly. You think I'm pathetic for buying you a house? She snorted. I mean, yeah. It's sad how desperate you are for people to like you. You threw away almost 300 grand on us. And guess what? I still don't respect you. If anything, I respect you less. Nick chuckled. It was a small sound, barely more than a puff of amusement, but it was enough. I smiled. A slow, controlled, terrifying smile. You must have forgotten, I said. Or maybe you never bothered to check whose name is actually on the deed. Melissa's face changed. For the first time since I walked through the door, her expression cracked. Nick's posture stiffened. Wait, what do you mean? I stepped back towards the open doorway, the morning sun spilling over my shoulder. I mean, I said calmly, that you two better start packing, because by the end of the week, you won't be living here anymore. Panic flickered across their faces like lightning. I didn't give them a chance to react. I walked out, closed the door behind me, and let the quiet thud of it become the full stop ending this chapter of my life. By the time I reached my car, my phone was already buzzing nonstop. Calls from Melissa, calls from my parents, texts popping up so fast the screen lagged. I ignored every single one. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt a spark of something warm inside my chest. Not joy, not satisfaction. Relief. It didn't take long for the real collapse to start. Barely an hour later, a frantic banging rattled my front door. So loud it echoed through my apartment. I didn't need to check the peephole to know. I opened the door. My mother shoved past me instantly, eyes wide in horror, arms flailing like she was trying to swat away invisible attackers. You can't do this, Lauren, she shrieked. You can't just throw them out. My father followed more quietly, but with a matching look of disbelief, as if I'd just personally burned down the family home. Where are they supposed to go? My mother demanded. Use your head for once. Melissa is pregnant. Do you even think before you act? I crossed my arms. You mean like they thought before throwing a party and not inviting me? Or before calling me a loser for helping them? My mother waved a dismissive hand. That is irrelevant. Is it? I said. Melissa is your sister, she snapped. And Nick is family now. You don't just take a house away from family. I laughed, a humorless, exhausted laugh. That's funny, I said. Because when you pressured me to buy it, you made it very clear that it wasn't my house anymore. But now that I'm selling it, suddenly it's mine again. Huh. My father stepped forward. Let's be reasonable, he said firmly. You already spent the money. Just let them stay. What's done is done. That's when it hit me. They weren't mad at Melissa. They weren't mad at Nick. They weren't mad at their own behavior. In their eyes, I was the problem. I was the villain. I was the ungrateful one for not letting everyone use me. I stared at them, feeling something heavy lift off my shoulders at last. No, I said. I'm done being the family fix-it girl. They're moving out this week, or they're dealing with a realtor. My mother gasped as if I'd confessed to a crime. You're evicting your pregnant sister? She whispered, hand over her chest. She did it to herself, I said. She insulted me to my face. She used me. She made it clear what she really thought of me. My mother turned to my father. Say something. But he didn't have anything left to say. He just sighed and said, Come on, Lauren. Do you really want this kind of tension in the family? I met his eyes, unflinching. You created this. You and Mom backed me into a corner. You made me feel like I had no choice. And now that I'm taking back control, suddenly I'm unreasonable? My mother's voice dropped into something cold and sharp. If you do this, she said, you'll tear this family apart. I took a breath, steady, unapologetic. Then consider it torn. She flinched like I'd slapped her. My father clenched his jaw. Neither of them said another word. I walked to the door and opened it wide. If you're done trying to make me feel guilty, I said, you can go now. I have a house to sell. They stood there for several seconds, stunned, furious, speechless. Then they left. And for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely, unshakably free. It took less than 2 hours for Melissa to show up at my door. Not banging on it like our mother had. No, Melissa had a different strategy. When I opened it, she was standing there looking like a tragic movie character. Red, puffy eyes like she'd been crying for hours. Arms folded around herself, shoulders slumped, hair messy in a way that didn't look accidental. If I didn't know her, really know her, I might have believed it. Lauren, please. Her voice cracked. I leaned against the doorframe, unimpressed. Please what? She sniffled and looked down at her feet. I know I said things I shouldn't have, she whispered. I was just stressed. You know how pregnancy hormones are. Ah, there it was. The poor pregnant woman card. Played like clockwork. So, I said, crossing my arms, when you called me pathetic, said money can't buy respect, and laughed at me for helping you. That was just the hormones talking." She nodded quickly, almost too eagerly. "Yes, I didn't mean any of that. I was just overwhelmed with the move and the baby and everything. You know, I really appreciate what you did for us." I tilted my head. "Funny. You've never said that before." She swallowed hard. "You can't kick us out," she blurted. "We have nowhere to go." I shrugged. "Not my problem. I'm sure Mom and Dad will take you in." Her face darkened instantly, like a storm cloud rolling over the sun. "They don't want us there," she said bitterly. I raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe you should ask them why they won't help you instead of expecting me to be your doormat." Her jaw tightened. "Okay," she said sharply, as if resetting the scene. "Fine. You want an apology? I'm sorry, Lauren. There, I said it." I stared at her, silent, waiting. She blinked. "What?" "Say what you're really sorry for." She hesitated. "I'm sorry I didn't invite you to the party," she muttered. "And for saying those things about you." I nodded once. She shifted, uncomfortable, defensive. But I could see the truth written all over her face. She wasn't sorry. She was desperate. "Lauren, come on," she snapped softly. "You're making this harder than it has to be." I took a slow breath. "No," I said. "You're sorry you got caught. You're sorry you need something from me now. But you're not sorry for using me. You're not sorry for treating me like garbage once you got what you wanted." Her lips twitched. Her eyes flashed. Her entire expression dropped the fake softness. There she was, the real Melissa. "Just let Nick and me rent the house from you," she said quickly, scrambling now. "We'll pay you every month. That way we won't have to move, and you'll still make money." I almost laughed. "With what money, Melissa? Nick can barely afford gas. And if you think I want to spend the rest of my life chasing you for rent payments, you've lost your mind." Her face went red. "I will pay you," she insisted. "You just have to trust me." I raised an eyebrow. "Like how you trusted me enough to invite me to your housewarming party? Or how you trusted me enough not to talk crap about me 2 seconds after moving in?" She had no comeback. Her eyes darted sideways, searching for one, but nothing came. That was my cue. I shut the door in her face. Not slammed, just a firm final click. Less than 60 seconds later, my phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. "I hope you know selling the house doesn't make you any less of a loser. Enjoy your money, Lauren. You'll always be alone." I stared at the message, then put my phone face down and smiled. The meltdown was beginning, and I wasn't even done with breakfast. When Saturday rolled around, the deadline I'd given them, I made a point to stop by the house. Not because I needed to oversee anything, but because I wanted to see with my own eyes what consequences looked like. Melissa and Nick were in the driveway, surrounded by suitcases, boxes, random furniture, a plastic bin spilling baby clothes onto the concrete. Melissa was red-faced, barking orders at Nick. Nick was cursing under his breath as he tried to shove a dresser into their beat-up car. My parents were there too, standing off to the side with arms crossed, faces twisted in anger. Not at Melissa. Not at Nick. No, their fury was aimed squarely at me. I leaned against my car and watched the show. "Need some help?" I asked lightly. Melissa spun around. "Go to hell, Lauren." I smirked. "You sure? I mean, I helped you move in. Seems only fair I help you move out." Nick slammed the trunk, all veins and frustration. "This is bullshit." I shrugged. "What else did you expect?" He stepped forward, face flushed. "We're your family. Who the hell kicks out their own pregnant sister?" I held up a finger. "Correction. I didn't kick you out. I just reminded you that the house was never yours." Melissa scoffed. "You think that makes you some kind of big shot? You think you won?" I tilted my head. "I think I stopped being an idiot. If that counts as winning, then yeah." My mother finally stormed forward. Her arms were crossed so tightly I thought she'd break something. "I hope you're happy, Lauren," she hissed. "I hope this was worth it. You humiliated your own sister. You turned your back on your family." I raised an eyebrow. "Oh, see, that's where you're wrong. You all turned your backs on me the moment I stopped being useful." My father muttered under his breath. "Pathetic." I laughed, loudly. "Pathetic? You think I'm pathetic? I didn't beg and manipulate someone into buying me a house. I didn't throw a party in a home I didn't pay for, and I sure as hell didn't insult the person who made it possible." Melissa rolled her eyes. "Oh my God, would you just shut up? You love playing the victim." "You're right," I replied calmly. "I don't love playing the victim, but I do love watching karma do its work." Nick kicked a packing box hard enough that it toppled over. "This is stupid." "Agreed," I said. "You had a pretty sweet deal. A free house, a fresh start. All you had to do was show the tiniest bit of respect. But nope, that was too much effort, huh?" "Lauren, you're so petty," Melissa spat. "I know," I said with a shrug. "But the thing is, you earned this." My mother grabbed Melissa's arm. "Let's go," she snapped. She's made her choice. Let her rot alone in her empty house. I grinned. Oh, it won't be empty for long. I already have buyers lined up. That finally shut them up. Melissa's face twisted. You're really selling it? Yep, should be off my hands in no time. There was nothing more to say. A few minutes later, they piled into their car, angry, humiliated, defeated, and drove off. I stood in the quiet driveway, watching their taillights fade, feeling the weight I'd carried for years lift off my chest. Today, I wasn't the responsible one. I wasn't the reliable one. I wasn't the doormat. Today, I was just me, and that was enough. A week after Melissa and Nick dragged themselves and all their boxes back to my parents' house, my phone rang. I didn't need to check the caller ID. There was only one person in the world who would call me at 6:42 in the morning like an emergency siren. I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th, I answered, not because I wanted to, but because I finally felt curious enough to see how far the performance would go. My mother didn't even breathe before she started. After everything you've done, she snapped, you are not our daughter anymore. I blinked at the wall across from me. Wow, no warm-up, no fake sugary guilt trip. No, Lauren, sweetie, we need to talk. Just straight to you are dead to us. Mom, I said calmly, it's too early for theatrics. You think this is funny? She shrieked. You humiliated your sister. She's pregnant. You made her life harder for your own ego. You disgust me. I leaned back in my chair. Let's go over this again, I said, bored. Just for clarity. I ticked each point off with my finger. 1. You and Dad forced me to buy them a house. 2. Melissa and Nick took it without a single thank you. 3. They threw a housewarming party and didn't invite me. 4. Melissa called me a loser for helping her. And 5. I took back what was mine. I paused. And that makes me the bad guy? There was silence on the other end. Hot, crackling silence. You abandoned your family, she hissed. I laughed softly. No, Mom, you abandoned me the second I stopped being useful. I could hear my father murmuring something in the background, the way he always did when he wanted her to calm down, but would never outright tell her she was wrong. She ignored him. Melissa is devastated, my mother said, her voice melting into fake sorrow. She's crying nonstop. She doesn't know what she did to deserve this. I nearly rolled my eyes. She knows exactly what she did, I said. She just didn't think there'd be consequences. You've changed, my mother snapped. You're cold, cruel, heartless. No, I said softly. I'm just done. There was a long pause. I could feel her searching, scrambling, trying to figure out which guilt button still worked. None of them did. Do me a favor, I said. Lose my number. And I hung up. I half expected an instant callback. Something dramatic. Some crying voicemail. Some attempt at weaponizing silence. Nothing. No calls. No texts. No passive-aggressive paragraphs. Nothing. The quiet was beautiful. After that call, I did the last thing that needed to be done. I sold the house. I could have waited for a better market, could have held out for the perfect offer, could have squeezed every dollar back out of the investment. But I didn't want it anymore. I didn't want the memory, the guilt, the humiliation, the expectations, the constant reminder that I had thrown nearly $300,000 into a pit called family obligation and watched it burn. So I listed it below market value, 25% under, to be exact. It sold in 3 days. When the papers were signed, I walked out of the realtor's office lighter than I'd felt in years. That night, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. You're such a petty woman. You could have let us stay. Instead, you threw money away just to prove a point. You'll always be miserable. Enjoy your empty life. Melissa. Of course. I stared at the message, felt nothing, and deleted it without replying. No anger, no sting, no second thoughts. Just closure. In the days that followed, something strange happened. My apartment felt warmer, my mornings felt calmer, my mind felt quieter. It was like I'd spent years carrying a weight I didn't know was there, years being the responsible one, the reliable one, the fixer. The steady hand while everyone else stumbled and finally set it down. And beneath it all was me, just me, a woman who worked hard, saved her money, made smart decisions, and for once, refused to let her entire family drain her dry. I had lost a house. I had lost thousands of dollars. I had lost people who shared my blood. I had lost the illusion that family loyalty was unconditional. But I gained something far more valuable. Peace. I gained boundaries. I gained the ability to say no without shaking. I gained the strength to choose myself first. Finally, unapologetically. Never again, I thought, staring out my living room window at the city lights below. Never again would I pour myself out for people who only saw me as a resource. Never again would I mistake obligation for love. Never again would I bleed for people who wouldn't even hand me a bandage. From now on, I take care of one person, me.